At Salul. I pledge to fight against Bannerl. I pledge to vote for politicians who don't accept $1 from gun organizations and lobbyists. I pledge to never to let one of our kids feel like Emma Gonzalez again. Arizona Rev. Paul Gosar has some incredibly twisted notions about law and order. Fun for the whole family. Links Minds Facebook.
It's been about 2 months since the Kraut saga took place, and since that time, a new phenomena has swept over YouTube, drawing in brand new audiences and creating hype for something that wasn't really seen before. It's a sort of phenomena that can lead to Tariq Nasheed telling people that his dick is a weapon of mass destruction.
Black people, we have the genetic capacity to annihilate the entire planet sexually.
Or getting Sargon of Akkad to call people niggers.
You act like enough class like that now. Maybe you're just acting like a nigger, mate. Have you considered that? Do you think white people act like this?
Or lead to a conversation with the SPL.
At Funder. A few things to think about. 1. Dozens of Trumpers met with Russians. 2. Trump hasn't implemented sanctions. 3. Trump had them in the Oval Office. 4. Trump is a Russia Cyber Task Force. 5. The fact Trump is a traitor. 6. Not one thing in Mueller's indictment absolves Trump of anything.
At another Broward County school. Outrage. Dozens of students protesting in the wake of the massacre at nearby Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
I want to send a message to these politicians that they cannot allow this to continue to happen.
Across social media, frustration boiling over from teenagers. How many of you feel that school shootings feel much more normal now than they did, say, 10 years ago? Raise your hand. We sat down with a group of Douglas High students who are as shocked as they are angry.
We're at that age where we're mature enough to know how to use our voices, and we also have felt the pain of what it's like.
It's just so incredibly frustrating seeing how torn these families are and how horrified our community is.
Charlotte Dwyer hid in the school's auditorium for 2 hours, terrified.
But they need to understand the pain that we've gone through, the pain that the families who lost someone are going through, and so they can create laws that will not allow anyone, whether you're mentally ill or not, to purchase these guns that can kill hundreds in a matter of minutes.
Something needs to be done.
The pain is still raw for 17-year-old Lexi Gendron, who was hospitalized.
We need to help prevent this from ever happening again. Because you see it on the news and you say, that's not my kid, it's not my problem. Well, one day, what if it is your kid? What if one day that is your kid who got shot? Then are you going to finally care? And then is something going to finally be done?
In this rampage, they each lost friends, but gained a voice. Gabe Gutierrez,
Berlin
NBC
Holly opening
News.
Wes Anderson
Parkland,
S. I Love
Florida.
Dogs is a Japanophile S. Feast Film DW 15.2018.
YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over
Russia's
here.
Lavrov dismisses a selection claims as Blabber News DW 7 in 2.2018.
Thanks for watching.
At last count, over 40 Republicans have announced that they will not run for re-election this year. For tomorrow's Face the Nation, Nancy Cortez spoke with 4 of them. Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, Pennsylvania Representative Charlie Dent, Florida Congresswoman Ileana Ross-Langton, and California Representative Ed Royce. Here's part of that conversation.
Magnitude 7.2 earthquake rattles Mexico, triggering deadly helicopter crash. France 24.
This is a real problem. It's tearing the country apart, and I think it's a real opportunity for the Republican Party to step up and be leaders in this debate. And we need to have it because it's just another.
Now Parkland students are setting and keeping the record straight wired.
We're just going to continue this throughout the school year. It is impossible to deal with this kind of grief on a daily basis.
I'm incredibly frustrated that we haven't moved legislation to prevent bump stocks from being used. And we're pushing to do that.
Why has your leadership not moved bump stock legislation? I thought everyone agreed on that.
I think that the thought here is that ATF is going to take those actions on their own. But from my standpoint, as a co-sponsor of legislation,
Russian indictment PayPal, YouTube, Facebook used to sway us politics.
I think we ought to mandate it, legislative, not wait for the ATF.
Senator, when you talk about immigration, mass violence, opioids, has Congress lost its ability to solve big problems?
You know, it'd be hard to argue that we haven't. We're back in the place where it requires 60 votes, and we've had a hard time coming together.
Tomorrow on Face the Nation, you can hear the entire panel discussion, as well as Nancy's interview with Republican Senator Ted Cruz.
Deputy Agard Rosenstein on grand jury indictment of Russians.
A heap of metal. What's left of a military helicopter moments after it spiraled out of the sky, killing at least 13 bystanders. Mexico's interior minister and state governor were on board, according to Mexican authorities headed to Oaxaca.
Federer becomes oldest world #1 France 24.
7.2 magnitude earthquake late Friday. One that sent lamps swinging and people pouring into the streets. This after a massive quake struck Mexico just 5 months ago, killing hundreds. Their concern now shared by people thousands of miles away.
It was frightening at the time.
Where a rare 4.2 magnitude earthquake caused an entire college to evacuate in South Wales. The aftershocks felt miles away in England.
But I can feel it. I can feel the earth.
Tonight, 2 nations rattled and recovering. Morgan Radford, NBC News, New York.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital.
The fate of minorities in post-ISIS Syria and Iraq. Syria deeply.
At the federal courthouse in Broward County today, a rally demanding change to the nation's gun laws.
I'm here because I'm scared to go to school. I'm here because it's happened so close to home, and I know
satirical
so many of the
auditorium
victims.
on through the eyes of a defector France 24.
The public defender says the confessed gunman, 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz, is
Russians
willing
indicted
to
in
plead
Special
guilty
Counsel
to
Robert
avoid
Mueller
a
S. Pro.
long, drawn-out public trial, but only if prosecutors agree to life without parole. The state attorney seeming to rebuff the offer, saying this certainly is the type of case the death penalty was designed for. And on this Saturday, just 3 days after the school shooting, 2 gun shows within driving distance. AR-15s among the most popular products on display.
There's some things that they should respect a little more than that, actually. Yeah, you came out, okay, but yeah, I came out because I wanted to see what the deal is, but they should actually they should have waited a little longer.
Today, Stoneman Douglas
The
High
impact of
School
Chechen and North Caucasian militants in Syria deeply.
I will hug each and every one of you as many times as you need, and I will hold you as long as you need me to for all 3,300 of you and your families, and we will get through this together.
Just miles away, 17-year-old Joaquin Oliver among the first to be laid to rest. The high school senior, one of those murdered at
Olympics,
Parkland
Lizzie
Stoneman
Arnold wins
Douglas
Team
High
GB's
School.
first gold medal.
14 more funerals in the coming days, including athletic director Chris Hickson.
As Bitcoin nears $11,000, here is the history of its biggest ups and downs. Zero Hedge.
And it will never be the same again without him. But it was who he was. It's just who he was.
Tonight, the South Florida Sun-Sentinel is reporting another misread flag. Florida's Child Welfare Agency
Munich
checked on
security
Nicholas
conference
Cruz
during the defense
after
minister on
seeing
the
a
threat to
video
global
of him
stability.
cutting himself. The newspaper says social workers concluded he was depressed and he revealed he was going to buy a gun. Jose, according to the report, no further action was taken.
Carry so many warnings and yet nothing was done.
On so many levels.
You and I live here in South Florida. We cover
The humanitarian crisis in Syria's northern de-escalation zone. Syria
Jose,
deeply.
We've covered, you and I both, wars, long-term assignments around the world. And I gave that up. I didn't want to be doing that anymore. I came home and I kind of feel that the carnage there, I'm now seeing that carnage right here in my own backyard here at home.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
Analysis Iran and Israel
On this
containment in
edition for
Syria
February
deeply.
17th, new details about the troubled past of the Florida school shooting suspect as survivors demand change. Also, the fallout after the indictment of 13 Russians for election meddling. And why hiring ex-offenders might be good for business. Next on PBS NewsHour Weekend.
From the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center
Syria 2018, the major issues for the year ahead. Syria
Good
deeply.
evening and thanks for joining us. There are new reports tonight that the teenage suspect in this week's school shooting in Parkland, Florida, was on the radar of local child welfare authorities.
The shifting role of women in Syria's economy. Syria deeply.
And killed 17 people at Marjorie Douglas Stoneman High School on Wednesday. 2 Florida newspapers are reporting that in August of 2016, Nicholas Cruz posted a video on the social media network Snapchat showing him cutting his arms. When the state investigated, it concluded that Cruz had not been mistreated by his mother, was receiving care from a mental health counselor, and was attending school. Today, students rallied at the federal courthouse in Fort Lauderdale demanding stricter gun laws and criticizing elected officials who accept campaign funds from the gun lobby.
To every politician who is
Pro-gun
taking
Russian bus split Twitter after Parkland shooting wired.
He was able to legally purchase that semi-automatic rifle and come into my school and slaughter 17 of my people.
Facebook plans to use U.S. mail to verify its election ad wires. NBC News.
And I will never be able to see them again.
Survivors are also raising their voices online. On Twitter, one young woman wrote, "We don't want our teachers to have
Business
guns.
news, markets reports, and financial news from Sky News.
Genuine, lasting change." While a student Facebook page, #NeverAgain, has tens of thousands of followers. Last night, the President and First Lady visited a local hospital where many of the shooting victims were recovering. While brushing off questions about gun laws, the President had praise for the medical professionals.
And first responders, everybody, the job they've done is incredible, and I want to congratulate you. Incredible job.
Did you speak with victims, Mr. President?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did indeed, and it's very sad something like that could happen.
Cruz's lawyers say Cruz is willing to plead guilty to avoid the death penalty. The Broward County prosecutor says now is not the time to discuss a plea deal.
Snow bears down on Northeast
after a
record warrant
stunning
to follow
indictment
up
by the
news.
U.S. Justice Department, which accused 13 Russians and 3 Russian companies of meddling in America's 2016 presidential election, Russian and American government officials responded. Russia has
Military helicopter crashes in Mexico, killing 13 quake survivors on the ground.
At a security conference in Munich, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said he had, quote, no reaction to the indictments.
So until we see the facts, everything else is just blather. I beg your pardon for a not really
In Homs,
diplomatic.
Assad accused of using military for urban planning Syria
America's
deeply.
National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, said the evidence of Russia's meddling is clear.
We're becoming more and more adept at tracing the origins of this espionage and subversion. And as you can see with the FBI indictment, the evidence is now really incontrovertible and available in the public domain.
The indictment by Special Counsel Robert Mueller detailed a coordinated scheme by Russians to interfere
Mueller's
in
indictment
the
of
US
13 Russians strikes fear into the Trump White House, Mother
Trump's
Jones.
presidential campaign and undermine Hillary Clinton. The
Trump
indictment
got donor
alleges
issues
that the
assault
Russians
weapons ultimatum
posed as
after Florida
Americans on
shooting
social
by
media and bought misleading online ads, staged political rallies in the U.S. without revealing their Russian identities or backing, and solicited and paid Americans to promote or disparage candidates. President Trump has called Russian meddling in the election a hoax and took to Twitter yesterday to reiterate his claim there was no collusion and that the Russian interference began in 2014 before he
Celebrity
was a
Big Brother
presidential
recap Omarosa denies sleeping with
on
Trump.
the Russia indictments and the fallout, I'm joined by Kimberly Martin, a professor of political science at Barnard College and Columbia University. No surprise that the Russians said what the Russians said today. We don't have the facts. This isn't us, etc., etc.
The facts are pretty incontrovertible, assuming that they can back up the statements that they made.
Here are some of the most important quotes from Mueller's indictment of Russians.
Not merely on election interference, but on things like wire fraud and identity theft. And what's really interesting is that they seem to have access to emails and phone calls and internal documents that give
Four Israeli soldiers wounded in Gaza border explosion.
The Internet Research Agency was divided up as a corporation. So, I mean, the amount of evidence that they appear to have is
Four Israelis hurt by bomb set and flag at Gaza fans, igniting night of fight in the New York Times.
Look, this is an exoneration. This says no collusion. This happened before I was even a presidential candidate. It seems that Rod Rosenstein's kind of splitting the middle here. On the one side, he says the amount of evidence is overwhelming and we're presenting it to you. On the other side, he didn't actually say that this is the sum totality of the Russia investigation.
Exactly. And, you know, we don't really know if there's more behind this, but one of the important things that the indictment does is act as a deterrent for other Russians that might want to intervene in the 2018 midterm elections, which we've heard is a real possibility, because the fact that they've got this incredibly in-depth information means that if they caught these people, they can catch other people too.
And by indicting them, it essentially prevents them from traveling abroad, because anybody who has an extradition treaty with the United States
may be planning bankruptcy,
is going
filing
to
the
arrest
Buffalo
them
News.
if they appear on their territory. So that includes, virtually all
Dana
of Europe.
on her Black
It
Panther
includes
role. She
Israel,
protects what
it
we would have in
includes
NPR.
large parts of East Asia. And that's a real deterrent for anybody doing this again, if you realize that the Justice Department is going to get you.
So the sanctions or the penalties that are being put on these individuals, this is in the context of an administration that isn't taking large-scale sanctions against Russia.
Right. So it really is a way of the Department of Justice punishing Russians and creating a deterrent for other Russians to intervene in future elections, even though it seems like the
Hold up, searching. Wacky stuff going on all over the place. Germany considering free public transportation to take on air pollution. News DW 13 2.2018. Now this is just outlandish. Facing new penalties over poor air quality, Germany has said it wants to test free public transport in 5 cities. Bonn and Essen are among the cities to serve as testing ground for the new project. Under pressure from the European Union to rein in air pollution, the German government said it is considering a plan that would make public transportation free in its most polluted cities, according to a letter seen by German media on Tuesday. The letter, sent to European Environment Commissioner Carmen Uvela in Brussels, was written by German Environment Minister Barbara Hendricks, Agriculture Minister Christian Schmidt and Chancellery Office Chief Peter Altmaier. Read more: Germany's air pollution. Clean up or pay up. The German government proposed a free public transportation scheme to encourage people to leave their cars at home, thereby reducing nitrogen dioxide emissions and particulate matter. Prominent Republican donor issues ultimatum on assault weapons. The New York Times. Now this is just outlandish. A prominent Republican political donor demanded on Saturday that the party pass legislation to restrict access to guns, and vowed not to contribute to any candidates or electioneering groups that did not support a ban on the sale of military-style firearms to civilians. Al Hoffman Jr., a Florida-based real estate developer who was a leading fundraiser for George W. Bush's campaigns, said he would seek to marshal support among other Republican political donors for a new assault weapons ban. For how many years now have we been doing this, having these experiences of terrorism, mass killings, and how many years has it been that nothing has been done? Mr. Hoffman said in an interview. It is the end of the road for me. Mr. Hoffman announced his ultimatum in an email to half a dozen Republican leaders, including Jeb Bush and Gov. Rick Scott of Florida. He wrote in the email that he would not give money to Mr. Scott, who is considering a campaign for the Senate in 2018. Or other Florida Republicans he has backed in the past, including Representative Brian Mast, if they did not support new gun legislation. I will not write another check unless they all support a ban on assault weapons, he wrote. Enough is enough.